folks. I'm continuing from my last session where we talked about how to automate some of the tasks in daily operations using SAP. Some of the users, they came back and they were talking about how they would want to use generative AI to perform some of these tasks, and they were asking about how USB4SAP can help. So let's see what can be done to automate some of the daily tasks, such as reading an email, inferring the intent of the email, and then performing some of the lookups. All right, let's get going. So picking up on the same personas, Rusty, he does it the old way, and Pam, she's more technologically inclined, so she uses some of these tools, including OpenAI along with SAP and Power Automate. We'll be using OpenAI, SAP, and Power Automate along with some data in Excel to do the work today, right? So the overall scenario is something like this, where it starts with an email of a vendor saying, hey, due to some climate event or whatever causes, there is a delay in some of the material shipments which are needed for production. And based on this, first we use OpenAI to read the email contents and infer the intent. We're using DaVinci. And then next step is to perform some of the key elements, reading what is the vendor, what is the PO, and delivery date. And based on that, first a user is alerted for the potential situation. And then the automation takes over and performs two tasks. First, go into SAP and look at the vendor and all the relevant POs for that particular vendor and notify the user. And based on that list, go again in the SAP system and run this report, RM07 IDIFH, and figure out where I can find some alternate stock in the inventory within the SAP system. All right, so the workflow is something like this. It starts with the email being triggered, and if you see, this is from a vendor in China. They're notifying about potential delay in your order. They have given the material as a text, and their vendor name is also part of the text material, and the warehouse detail. And interestingly, there's some important information which they have put in Chinese characters, and we would not want to miss out on that information, right? So what we do is to pull this first upon the email trigger. We want to start processing this workflow. First, clean up the email, and then the next step is really post this to AI. So here we are telling OpenAI to basically go and extract the vendor number, account ID, vendor name, contact person, material ID, and material text from the body of the email. And then also we are telling it that if there is any special remark, then that should be extracted in a field called additional comments, right? So that's the post which we are using to get this information as an API call to OpenAI. And based on this, we get the information for the order elements which are coming in the email. remember we were getting elements like material number, vendor name, etc. in the email. So we want to infer what are those. And the next step is then we go into SAP and run this report for all the purchasing documents, which is ME2L or RM06 EL00 in SAP, and get the list of all the documents which are pending for this particular vendor. So once it finds that list, it will start parsing through it, and wherever it matches a condition that the vendor name matches, it goes and posts a message like this in the Teams to the buyer. So here's how this message looks like on the Teams. So here, from reading the email, it has inferred that the PO number is this, even though the vendor didn't mention the PO number, and it has inferred the material number, and then what is the vendor code. Now it is also saying that remember some of the Chinese characters which were there in the email, characters like this can be easily missed out, but what it was telling is that this particular person will be out of office during these dates. Additional comments, and their manager should be contacted during this period, right? So what goes on is the next step is to run a report in SAP to find alternative stock material, which is this RM07 IDI FH report, and get the alternative stock and give the user that information. So basically the user is given this list that based on the material you had ordered, the vendor cannot supply on time, but we have found alternative stock, and here's the list which they will get in their Excel for them to consider and reach out to use for their production. All right, so in summary, what it has done is taken an email, that probably happens in purchasing a lot, especially with the supply chain issues going on, infer the intent and the elements which are needed, like vendor ID, their material number, PO number, etc. Go and look up in SAP for all the relevant PO documents, and if the condition matches, go notify the user, and also search in SAP what is the alternative. This is probably very useful for a user who doesn't need to then do all these 12 different steps, and automation takes care of it so that they can focus on what they do next. Thank you. I hope you find it useful.